Persistent rumination, an incessant internal monologue, significantly impacts cognitive function and emotional well-being, particularly as individuals mature. This constant mental activity, often perceived as a form of preparedness or caution, can in fact be a profound psychological distress signal. Carl Jung posited that excessive deliberation is not strategic planning but rather a cry for solace from the deeper self. When an individual finds themselves ensnared within the confines of their own mind, the true conflict often lies not with external circumstances, but with an internal archetype awaiting recognition and integration. This analysis will explore the underlying mechanisms of this pervasive mental clamor and unveil the Jungian key to transcending this intricate internal labyrinth. Entering the cognitive landscape of someone prone to overthinking reveals a complex, often magnificent yet paradoxically confining, mental architecture. Each structural element is meticulously constructed from apprehension concerning hypothetical future events, with the binding mortar being an intrinsic desire for absolute control. Within Jungian psychology, this phenomenon exemplifies the modern individual's entanglement in their own internal maze. The meticulous analysis of every detail, the exhaustive calculation of every potential outcome, akin to a grandmaster's chess strategy, is often an unconscious attempt to forge a safety net against uncertainty. However, the psychological reality is that each new scenario meticulously constructed by the mind inadvertently creates additional constraints on one's psychological freedom. From a Jungian perspective, overthinking represents the ego's persistent endeavor to force the vast, chaotic, and archetypal flow of existence into its own narrow, logical frameworks. Life, by its very nature, is an immense, unpredictable, and dynamic process that resists complete filtration through the ego's rational lens. The relentless pursuit of predicting every ripple and wave in this oceanic current fundamentally disengages the individual from the direct experience of living. This mechanism, often termed the illusion of control, serves as humanity's primary defense against the inherent ambiguity of existence. Yet, this protective shield frequently calcifies into an impenetrable armor, which ultimately becomes a symbolic psychological tomb. Consider the neural pathways involved when an individual fixates on a specific event for an extended period. The struggle is less with the objective reality of the event itself, and more with its distorted, internally generated representation within the consciousness. Jung described this state as a profound constriction of psychic energy, or libido, through introversion. Under optimal psychological conditions, this vital life energy should flow outwards, catalyzing creativity, action, and personal transformation. However, in states of excessive rumination, this energy becomes trapped, recirculating within the intricate, often darkened corridors of the mind. Unable to externalize and fulfill its natural function, this energy begins to spiral inwards, culminating in a self-consuming mental vortex. This internal abyss systematically depletes an individual's capacity for joy, inner peace, and, critically, their ability to maintain presence within the current moment. The fundamental human desire for control stems from an inherent apprehension that without it, we risk becoming lost within the boundless and often disquieting expanse of the unconscious. Overthinking, in essence, functions as a form of internally generated cognitive noise, specifically designed to drown out the unsettling messages emanating from the depths of the unconscious mind. The conscious intellect engages in such verbose analysis that it effectively silences the subtle, yet profoundly wise, whispers from the soul's deepest strata. To embark upon the sacred journey that Jung termed individuation, one must first confront the formidable guardian at the threshold of this mental prison: our own relentless obsession with control. This internal sentinel often whispers persuasive narratives: cease thinking, and you shall be undone. Fail to calculate every variable, and your world will inevitably collapse. However, genuine psychological wisdom lies in the courageous acceptance that external circumstances are inherently unpredictable, yet we possess an inherent internal resilience, a core self, capable of regeneration from adversity. The illusion of control merely depletes our vital psychic resources, fostering stagnation and inducing a false sense of security. For the individual prone to excessive rumination, life ceases to be an experiential journey and transforms into an endless series of problems requiring resolution. Yet, life is not a problem to be solved, it is a profound truth to be lived. This truth is inevitably fragmented and diminished through incessant analytical dissection. As Carl Jung emphatically stated, the rational mind must function as a loyal servant, not a tyrannical master. If, upon internalizing these insights, a resonance of unease or recognition arises, signaling that your mind has become a cage, this constitutes the initial phase of psychological awakening. This awakening commences precisely when the compulsion to know and control everything is relinquished. When one embraces the inherent nobility of not knowing, and the latent potential embedded within uncertainty, the formidable walls of this mental prison reveal themselves to be constructs of mere illusion. True psychological strength is not found in controlling external events, but in consciously choosing one's internal disposition in response to them. While wearing a metaphorical psychological armor may offer protection from perceived blows, it simultaneously inhibits the capacity for genuine connection, vulnerability, and the warmth of lived experience. Jung advocates for the pursuit of clarity over armor. Clarity emerges only when the incessant analytical struggle of the mind subsides, and the turbulent waters of thought become calm and transparent. A significant psychological tragedy of the contemporary era is the widespread tendency for individuals to lose sight of their authentic self, adopting instead a public mask that is erroneously identified as their true essence. This concept, which Jung termed the persona, is an idealized facade presented to the external world, meticulously crafted to garner social acceptance and approval. For those predisposed to overthinking, this persona becomes a sacred, inviolable edifice, upon which not a single imperfection can be tolerated. Why does one meticulously weigh every word? Why are hours spent agonizing over whether a simple message was misinterpreted after its dispatch? Because the overthinking mind cannot countenance even the slightest perceived flaw in its meticulously constructed persona. Excessive rumination, in this context, functions as a perpetual repair mechanism, an ongoing attempt to perfect this social mask. The profound irony is that in relentlessly polishing the persona, the authentic individual beneath it, a fragile, imperfect, occasionally angry, yet fundamentally loving entity, is gradually obscured and diminished. According to Jung, the persona serves a necessary function, facilitating social interaction. However, for the individual prone to overthinking, the persona ceases to be a functional instrument and transforms into an oppressive prison. The relentless analysis of external perceptions effectively feeds one's own internal tormentor. Questions such as, "Why did they look at me that way?" or "Did I appear incompetent with that response?" are perpetual examinations in an unending psychological test administered by an imagined jury within one's own mind. This internal examination lacks resolution, as its very design and evaluation are driven by one's own underlying anxieties. Overthinking, in this context, is a futile psychological defense mechanism, constructed against the potential for perceived damage to the persona. So many intricate strategies are devised that the individual becomes lost within them, losing touch with the essence of genuine authenticity. As Jung articulated, who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakes. Yet, the overthinker perpetually attempts to remain awake within a nightmare, ceaselessly analyzing the projections of external perceptions. Delving deeper, anxiety itself can be understood as a physiological and psychological response from the authentic self, the underlying personality, desperately striving to escape the oppressive pressure of the persona. The more ardently an individual strives to present an image of perfection, the more vehemently this imperfect, yet genuine, aspect of the unconscious protests. The reverberation of these internal protests within the mind manifests as what we identify as overthinking. This pervasive mental noise is, in essence, the sonic representation of the soul's profound weariness from constant imitation. The persona serves as a psychological buffer, a shield erected between the self and others. However, individuals who engage in excessive rumination often retract so deeply within this shield that, over time, they become indistinguishable from the shield itself. Have you ever observed that those who most intensely desire to be understood are paradoxically the ones most adept at concealing themselves behind their masks? This creates a profound paradox, a simultaneous yearning to be seen, coupled with a mortal dread of revealing the authentic self. This deep-seated fear compels the meticulous analysis of every detail, every vocal inflection, every glance. Jung asserts that on the path to individuation, the persona must become transparent. This necessitates the acceptance and integration of the inherently human, imperfect aspects beneath the mask. However, anxiety interjects, whispering insidious warnings. If they witness the real you, they will undoubtedly reject you. At this critical juncture, it is imperative to pause and critically examine this internal voice. Is it a genuine protector, or is it a pervasive fog obstructing the path to your authentic reality? Overthinking functions as a self-imposed psychological tax, paid to safeguard a fictitious personal domain. This tax, however, ultimately bankrupts the individual spiritually. The more one overthinks, the more one acts in accordance with this illusory framework, and consequently, the more profoundly depleted one becomes. External perceptions are fundamentally beyond an individual's control. As Jung observed, others often perceive us through the lens of their own unconscious projections. Regardless of how flawlessly a mask is worn, others will inevitably perceive reflections of their own internal light or darkness through us. What then is the utility of this ceaseless, exhaustive analysis? Why expend vital energy in maintaining an illusory self-image? True power resides in embracing the trembling vulnerability beneath the mask. True freedom emanates from relinquishing the fear of perceived shame and possessing the profound courage to simply exist authentically. This internal analytical monster is, in truth, a psychological parasite, consuming the very essence of the soul in its relentless effort to sustain a manufactured identity. The realization of this can be profoundly unsettling, but this very shock facilitates the recognition of the unstable foundation upon which this false structure is built, poised for inevitable collapse. If this analysis resonates deeply, it signifies a profound weariness of bearing this burdensome mask and a yearning for one's authentic truth. This is a profound call to awakening. Why not repurpose this incessant internal inquiry, not to mend the mask, but to gently remove it? Only then can one access the holistic and serene self that Jung envisioned. When analysis ceases and the mask is shed, only the authentic self remains. The profound silence that emerges in this moment is the most exquisite psychological symphony. Overthinking is the cacophony of a metaphorical monster confined within the darkness, rattling its cage. By engaging in further analysis to silence this sound, one merely amplifies the monster's narrative with additional layers of logic. Have you ever pondered why the mind perpetually fixates on moments that inflicted profound pain, induced feelings of inadequacy, or evoked shame? It is because the archetypal shadow utilizes this incessant stream of thoughts as a constant reminder. Every suppressed emotion, every denied desire, and every obscured aspect of the personality that we vehemently disown returns to the conscious mind as an intrusive, persistent thought. According to Jung, the shadow embodies the individual one consciously refuses to be, yet paradoxically, it represents a deeply integral part of who one truly is. The overthinking individual attempts to rationalize this inherent reality, constructing elaborate logical justifications. However, this internal mental noise is, in fact, the silent, desperate cry of the shadow. The more one proclaims, "I am fine, I am strong, I am in control," the more vehemently the shadow begins to erode this false stronghold from within. Overthinking, therefore, is a desperate attempt to quell the psychological turmoil generated by this internal suppression. The underlying truth is that the overthinking individual is often a refugee, fleeing from their own internal darkness. Yet, that which is fled from inexorably maintains its control. The greater the distance created, the more monumental the shadow becomes within the conscious mind. These recurring cognitive loops are, in essence, unresolved paradoxes presented by the unconscious. The shadow yearns for integration into conscious awareness. By resisting this integration, it subtly sabotages dreams, relationships, and, most critically, cognitive clarity. Why the persistent apprehension of betrayal or abandonment by others? Perhaps this is the reverberating voice of an abandoned, wounded, and obscured aspect of the self. In Jungian psychology, confronting the shadow is considered the most audacious act an individual can undertake, as it necessitates the courageous acceptance of one's own perceived ugliness, envy, weakness, and suppressed primordial instincts. However, this embrace is often avoided through excessive rumination. The individual attempts to avert looking into this profound dark mirror by inundating the mind with theories, meticulous plans, and exhaustive analyses. Yet, this mirror is ubiquitous. It appears in a friend's casual remark, a spouse's fleeting glance, or a superior's critical assessment. This shadow persistently grins back. Jung's assertion is unequivocal. When the unconscious is not controlled, it rules your life, and you call it fate. Overthinking serves as a mechanism to succumb to this false destiny. The conscious mind becomes so engrossed that the individual fails to recognize that the very threads of their life are, in fact, being manipulated by their own suppressed emotional landscape. Pause here and engage in deep diaphragmatic breathing. The discomfort, the urge to retreat that may arise in this moment, is precisely where one encounters their shadow. This discomfort is not an adversary, it is a profound compass. Until reconciliation with one's own inherent darkness is achieved, the mind will never attain genuine repose, for the shadow demands to be seen, acknowledged, and integrated into the totality of the self. It has been confined to the metaphorical psychological basement, like a monstrous entity, but now this monster directs the clamor of its internal feast to the upper echelons of thought. True psychological resilience is not the eradication of darkness, but the profound capacity to walk alongside it. If this journey resonates, it is time to pose a critical question. To whom do these internal voices truly belong? Are they echoes of the idealized self, or the suppressed, dark other, that has been silenced for years? This confrontation can be painful. It may dismantle the carefully constructed persona, yet it is the sole path leading to the authentic self, to the profound wholeness of a fragmented psyche. To calm the internal storm, one must learn to embrace the shadow. As Jung eloquently stated, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. If one is prepared to illuminate this internal darkness now, the profound significance of this journey becomes self-evident. Make a commitment and internally articulate, I am ready to accept my own darkness. This is not a mere statement, it is the first tangible action towards dismantling the internal chains of the mind. Upon making this decision, the internal noise gradually begins its transformation into a meaningful melody, for one is no longer fleeing the monster, but engaging in dialogue with it. When the shadow's cries subside, only a profound silence remains, and within that silence, one's true inner strength. The singular route to escaping the suffocating prison of overthinking is to befriend its guardian. And this guardian is none other than one's own deepest, most disowned self. Are you prepared to fearlessly venture into this internal darkness to discern the ancient secrets your shadow yearns to impart? Remember, the most luminous insights often emerge from the deepest psychological shadows. The method for appeasing the incessant internal tempest is not to contend with the wind, but to cultivate the unwavering presence of an objective observer, serenely witnessing the storm. One of Jung's most profound keys to individuation lies in liberating oneself from the reactive, clinging, and easily swayed nature of the ego, and instead anchoring oneself in the serene center of the self. For the individual prone to overthinking, each thought often presents as an urgent cognitive fire demanding immediate intervention. However, true wisdom resides in standing within the metaphorical inferno and comprehending that the flames are often mere illusions. When one automatically reacts to every anxiety-inducing scenario that traverses the mind, that thought is inadvertently energized, transforming it into a formidable psychological entity. Jung referred to this as the prison of reactivity. A thought arises, an emotion is immediately attached to it. This emotion triggers a physiological response, and ultimately, one finds themselves lamenting a catastrophe that exists solely within the realm of the mind. However, let us investigate further. You are not your thoughts. You are the conscious entity that observes these thoughts. The mind functions as a theatrical stage, upon which countless actors, myriad thoughts, enter and exit daily. Tragedies, comedies, dramas unfold. The fundamental error lies in identifying with these actors, perpetually assuming the role of a victim continually assailed and emotionally distressed. Jung, conversely, invites us to assume the role of the director, positioned backstage, or even to become a silent, detached spectator in this internal theater. To be an observer signifies possessing the courage to articulate, "I currently have a thought that suggests I am failing, and I am observing it." This contrasts sharply with internalizing, "I am failing," when the thought arises. This critical distance, this infinitesimal psychological gap created between oneself and the thought, is, in essence, the genesis of true freedom. When one ceases to react, the thought is deprived of its energetic sustenance and, over time, recedes into the periphery of the mind. Overthinking is fueled by the mind's relentless compulsion to react to every stimulus, but the cultivated observer understands that not every internal query necessitates a response. Within Jungian philosophy, this represents the ascendancy of conscious perception over the ego. While reactivity enslaves one to the external world and the phantoms of one's own mind, observation empowers one as the sovereign of their internal domain. Have you ever noticed that the stimuli to which you react most intensely often correspond to your deepest vulnerabilities? The instantaneous construction of defenses against criticism, the immediate fabrication of scenarios for uncertainty, these are in fact attempts to safeguard the fragile construct of the ego. However, the observational mind requires no armor. It is simply clarity. It is akin to a pristine lake through which the stones on its bed are clearly visible. If the water remains perpetually agitated, that is, if one constantly reacts, the underlying truth will never be discerned. Now, pause and confront the most insistent thought within your mind. Acknowledge its presence, attempt to discern its psychological hue, comprehend its message, yet simultaneously recognize its ephemeral nature. As observation is practiced, this once intimidating thought will gradually diminish, transforming into a mere confluence of words. This is not an act of avoidance. It is a genuine confrontation, for the greatest strength lies in the capacity to experience emotion without being enslaved by it. Jung teaches a psychological detachment. When one detaches from this chaotic torrent of thoughts, an unwavering center of the soul is revealed. Within this center, there is neither regret for the past nor anxiety for the future. There exists only the expansive and serene presence of the now. For the overthinking individual, the present moment can feel like a threat, as there is nothing within it to analyze. Yet, for the observer, the present moment constitutes the sole reality. When reactivity ceases, internal energy does not dissipate, instead, it becomes integrated. This sacred integration, which Jung termed individuation, blossoms in these moments of silent observation. One is no longer a leaf tossed by the currents of the mind, but a majestic oak with deep, stabilizing roots. The winds will continue to blow, thoughts will continue to arise, but one remains steadfast. This profound transformation is not instantaneous, it is a rigorous mental discipline. By consistently occupying the observer's stance each day, exercising the prerogative not to react to every thought, profound liberation is achieved. When the mind clamors, you must act immediately. This situation requires urgent resolution. Simply offer a gentle internal smile and continue to observe. True resilience is the capacity to maintain internal tranquility even amidst external turbulence. It is not armor, it is clarity. If this journey has resonated deeply, it signifies a readiness to assume command, liberating the fatigued ego. This is not surrender, it is a profound awakening, a unique trajectory from mental subjugation to the wise observation of one's own cognitive processes. Are you prepared to step off the stage and take a seat in the audience, simply witnessing the bustling play within your mind? Remember, the sky is not dependent on the clouds. Clouds pass, but the sky always remains, inherently clear. The most significant energy drain for an individual prone to overthinking occurs not solely within the conscious mind, but critically, at the very boundaries of the soul. When one's psychological doors are perpetually open to every external stimulus, every communication, every glance, and every criticism, the internal sanctuary is effectively transformed into a bustling marketplace, moving further away from the concept of the individual sacred space that Carl Jung so profoundly emphasized. While accessibility is often lauded as a virtue in contemporary society, from a spiritual and psychological perspective, excessive accessibility often equates to self-abnegation. When one is perpetually available to everyone, one cannot fully be present for oneself. Overthinking, in this context, becomes a desperate attempt to manage the chaos generated by this lack of internal boundaries. One feels compelled to analyze every piece of incoming external information because the absence of boundaries means this data directly impacts the raw, unprotected essence of the soul. Jung posited that an individual must construct a psychological perimeter around themselves, a sacred inner space. This space serves as a vital defense against the cacophony of the external world, the projections of others, and the suffocating pressures of societal expectations. However, by investing countless moments in scrutinizing the impression one leaves on others, this sacred space is inadvertently opened to invasion. Spending hours dissecting a terse message from an acquaintance essentially grants that individual access to one's internal domain, allowing them to occupy one's mental throne. The profound truth is that silence and a degree of inaccessibility are not indicative of arrogance, but rather represent a crucial strategy for psychological survival. Let us explore the deeper motivations. Why does one feel an inherent obligation to respond to every demand? Because the overthinking mechanism within the mind perceives a threat to its psychological security when external expectations are not immediately met. Fears such as, if I don't respond instantly, they won't like me, or, if I establish boundaries, I will be abandoned, are, in reality, the ego's urgent cries to protect its constructed identity. True strength resides in the capacity to allow a message to linger, to release criticism into the void without exhaustive analysis, and, most importantly, to dissolve into one's own internal silence. According to Jung, an individual's psychological health is directly proportional to their capacity to decline the incessant demands of the external world. The expansive mental space that emerges when one articulates, "No," is precisely where overthinking recedes, giving way to creative imagination. When psychological boundaries are neglected, one inadvertently begins to process the unconscious detritus of others within their own mind. Their anger, their envy, their perceived shortcomings are analyzed as if they were one's own. This leads to self-blame and profound psychological depletion. This constitutes an energetic theft, and one inadvertently opens the door to this theft through one's own actions. To cultivate inaccessibility is to educate others that one's presence is not perpetually available on demand, and that every thought and feeling is not public property. This is not about secrecy, it is about self-respect and dignity. In the Jungian sense, establishing boundaries means securing that quiet internal chamber where one can engage with one's own shadow and light. The key to this chamber must remain solely in one's possession. To quell the internal mental noise, one must first prevent the infiltration of external clamor. In this era of digital and social transparency, where virtually everything is known and every moment becomes public domain, the act of remaining unknown becomes a profound act of rebellion. When one chooses to remain unknown, the mind ceases its relentless creation of scenarios designed to appease others and instead focuses on its own internal depths. This is a profound challenge, aligned with a coaching approach to self-analysis. How many hours each day are truly dedicated to oneself? How many thoughts belong exclusively to you, shared with no one else? If everything is perpetually externalized, it signifies that nothing substantial remains internally that belongs solely to you. The method to overcome excessive rumination is to construct formidable mental gates. Do not permit every thought, every emotion, and every individual unrestricted entry. Allow some individuals to misunderstand you, some opportunities to close, and some relationships to quietly recede from your life. This is not a loss, it is a profound spiritual purification. As Jung stated, those who do not dare to look inward spend their lives analyzing the chaos of the external world. One will never find peace through the analysis of external chaos. Inner peace resides in the unwavering distance established between oneself and this chaos. This distance is not armor, it is clarity. It is a sacred boundary, safeguarding the unique essence that defines who you are. Are you prepared to re-evaluate these boundaries, to embrace the dignified strength that accompanies strategic inaccessibility? Retreat into your internal sanctuary and open the doors of your mind exclusively to those thoughts that genuinely serve your highest well-being. Remember, the most precious treasures are concealed within the deepest vaults, behind the most formidable locks. Your soul is a treasure, and its protection is your paramount responsibility. You have now reached the conclusion of this extensive and often challenging internal battle within the labyrinth of your own mind. However, this is not an ending. This is, in the profound words of Carl Jung, a magnificent commencement, the transition into the second half of the soul's journey. Those sleepless nights spent in endless rumination, those suffocating analyses, and every moment of self-inflicted torment were, in truth, catalysts leading you to this precise juncture. The threshold of profound transformation, where you are poised to emerge from the ashes of your former self. Transformation is inherently arduous, for the birth of something new necessitates the cessation of something old. What dies now is your relentless obsession with control, your insatiable desire to appear flawless, and the deceptive persona meticulously crafted for the perception of others. In the Jungian framework, rebirth signifies a profound reconciliation with the boundless ocean of the unconscious and the newly acquired capacity to confidently navigate its currents, rather than perpetually fleeing its storms. You are no longer the anxious, overthinking individual. You are now an individuated being, conscious of your shadow, resolute in your boundaries, and choosing to simply observe the thoughts that arise within your mind. Individuation is the courageous embrace of one's inherent fragmentation and its subsequent integration into a unified, holistic self. Every fear meticulously analyzed, every anger suppressed, and every uncomfortable truth evaded has now become an integral component of this newly integrated totality. Let us delve deeper. True transformation commences not when the mind achieves complete silence, but when one's dependence on its incessant chatter ceases. Now, you embody a calm, centered presence, no longer lost within the mental din, but capable of perceiving it as mere background auditory information. Jung posited that the ultimate aim of life is not the pursuit of happiness, but the attainment of psychological wholeness. And to be whole signifies the courageous acceptance of both one's internal light and one's internal darkness with equal fortitude. The crisis of overthinking served as a profound wake-up call from your soul, and you have heeded this signal, descending into your own profound depths. Now, emerge from those depths bearing a precious treasure. This treasure is an inherent inner steadfastness that the external world can never truly destabilize. Clarity now serves as your new psychological armor, and heightened awareness is your new internal compass. Have you observed that your former, impulsive, and depleting reactions to events are gradually being replaced by a more sagacious observation? This is the most palpable evidence that your soul has matured, that the ego is progressively yielding its dominance to the self. Rebirth is not an isolation from the world, but a conscious existence within it, with a consciousness that remains untainted by its external pressures. You now occupy this dignified internal position, no longer ensnared by the projections of others, deriving your self-worth from your own intrinsic internal affirmation. As Carl Jung profoundly articulated, no tree, it is said, can grow to heaven unless its roots reach down to hell. You have traversed this mental inferno, inhaled these somber analyses, and now, with the inherent strength drawn from these very roots, you ascend towards the heavens, towards a luminous and clear consciousness. Everything discussed throughout this discourse has, in essence, been a tool for the construction of this new identity. The time has arrived to wield these tools and perceive life through these newly awakened eyes. Old patterns may attempt to resurface, and familiar anxieties may whisper, but now you possess the profound knowledge that you are immeasurably stronger than these internal voices. You are the unfolding narrative, and the author of this narrative is no longer your fears, but your conscious, deliberate choices. This is not merely a discourse, it is a profound manifesto of your internal spiritual revolution. If you have navigated this transformative journey, you now possess an elevated awareness. For while the majority of humanity chooses to exist in mental subjugation, you have consciously chosen to be the master, the observer, and, most profoundly, your authentic self. This newfound courage will serve as your ultimate sanctuary through every storm encountered throughout the remainder of your life. Now, divest yourself of that old, constricting garment, that weary, overthinking self, and fully embrace this expansive, liberated consciousness. Your journey is not concluded. On the contrary, the authentic journey has just begun, for now, you stand in profound alignment with your true and integrated self. You have chosen transformation. You have chosen freedom. Now, step forth and greet the world with this newfound clarity, for the world, now more than ever, requires your unwavering and serene internal light. Remember, clarity, not armor. Strength, not flight. A life lived authentically and fully, not merely survived.